Iranian kamikaze Shahid-136 drones were used to attack Kyiv. The target of the aggressors was the critical infrastructure related to the energy sector.
The
enemy's goal is to destroy all Ukrainian infrastructure. They want people to freeze in winter. They want Ukrainians to stay for the winter without electricity, without heating. They want to cause us a humanitarian catastrophe. One of the drones hit an apartment building. 4 people were killed and a dozen were injured. Ukrainian defense neutralized 23 incoming drones thanks to the air defense systems adapted to work after dark. Since late yesterday evening, we have destroyed a total of 37 kamikaze drones. They all came from the south. Our preliminary calculations show that at least 85 to 96% were destroyed by our air defense. This is a pretty good figure, and this number will increase in the future. The goal is not as difficult and not as scary as we thought before. Russia's massive attacks on Ukrainian cities are also expected to exert psychological pressure on the inhabitants. Putin wants to have the same effect as in the frontier cities, where those places subjected to these attacks depopulate. The people there remain really determined. The president of Ukraine, Volodymyr Zelensky, appealed to his compatriots to limit the consumption of electricity. Due to the Russian missile attacks in some cities and regions of Ukraine, we have to limit the supply of electricity to keep the entire system stable. But it will be possible to avoid such stabilization blackouts if all of us in Ukraine consciously treat our consumption during the peak hours. This is a small thing for every person's life, but extremely tangible within the entire energy system. For example, this Saturday, residents of the Kyiv region limited the use of electricity by 20%, and overall in the country on average by 10%. In turn, the last power line in the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant was disconnected. The reason is another Russian shelling at the substation. The international community has again called upon Russia to demilitarize the plant, withdraw troops and equipment, and return all infrastructure to Ukraine's control. Russian terrorists have changed tactics. They are now trying to blackmail Ukraine and the whole world with missile attacks on distant nuclear power stations. Although Ukrainian cities have been the target of Russian attacks since the first hours of the war, there has been an avalanche of new attacks in the last week. Several hundred missiles worth over $1 billion have fallen on Ukrainian infrastructure and civilian buildings. Half of them were shot down. According to the Institute of War Studies, Russia has purchased about 300 kamikaze drones from Iran and ordered several thousand more. The authorities in Tehran deny this. The emerging information that Iran has supplied drones to Russia is politically motivated and disseminated by Western media. We did not deliver weapons to any of the warring parties. Intelligence sources say that the Iranian military is training Russian soldiers to operate drones in the occupied territories of Ukraine. In addition, they directly supervise the conduct of attacks on civilian targets. Whether they got there directly or through intermediaries does not really matter that much. We must be clear. Everyone who supplies Russia with weapons today is jointly responsible for these crimes. The General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine have reported that since the 24th of February, Russia has lost over 65,000 soldiers, 2,500 tanks, 5,200 armoured vehicles and nearly 1,600 artillery sets in Ukraine. Meanwhile, the foreign ministers of 27 European Union countries at a meeting in Luxembourg agreed to an EU training mission for Ukrainian soldiers. 15,000 soldiers are to be trained, most of them in Poland. In turn, the former Russian president, Dmitry Medvedev, quoted by the AFP agency, threatened that Moscow would sever ties with Israel if Jerusalem were to hand over weapons to Ukraine. We welcome the agreement on the decision establishing military assistance mission for Ukraine. Poland will provide a force headquarters to the mission and offer sets of training packages coordinated with the Ukrainian armed forces. We invite every interested state to join us in the common effort.